break down the structure for you for the next 75 minutes. I think for the first 30 minutes, I'm just going to talk at you guys and show you how the feature works. Some of you might be beginners at this and you're not very familiar. Some of you might have already used Keynote and you know how it works. I think there's going to be something for everybody here. Keynote, we redesigned the animation feature a couple months ago, so even if you have used it in the past, there might have been some things that have changed. So I want to just quickly run through the basics with everyone just so everyone knows how things generally work. The second half, we're going to work on a project together. One thing to note is that this is my first time doing a multilingual workshop, so I might talk too fast, or even for English speakers, I might just jump around. So if I ever go too fast, you can just stop me. This is casual. You can just raise your hand and yell and ask me to clarify what I just explained. Or if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask me. So the project that we're going to do on the second half is we're going to create our own drawing and with a character and a scene, and we're going to animate it. So hopefully by the time I finish talking at you guys, you will know all the things you need to do to animate that. So what you'll learn today, I'm going to start off with the super basics. I'll try to go by quickly because I think most people know it. And then I'll go into some more advanced stuff that maybe you guys might not have known. And then I want to talk about what we've added in the last couple months. Or even if you have used Keynote for a while, maybe you've never seen these features before in iOS. And then I have some fun examples, maybe tips or tricks or hacks that I can show you. And then we will go into our project. And I want to save 5 minutes at the end so that in case someone draws something that they're really proud of, we can airplay it and we can all show it with each other. So be prepared for that. All right. There are different ways to animate things in Keynote. Basically, there's two different ways. You can animate a slide from one slide to another. We call that a transition. Or you can animate things on a slide. We call those builds. For instance, if you have a square on a slide, the square can come in, and the square can come out, and the square can move around. So I'm going to jump out here. I guess the first thing I should tell you is how to get into the feature. If you go into the More menu in the corner, we have a thing called Transitions and Builds. I'm not sure why we didn't call it animation. Maybe we'll change it. And you can see that there is a little rectangle on the bottom, and it changes depending on what you select. If I select a slide, it says Add Transition. And if I select an object on the slide, more buttons come out, and it says Add a build in, add a build out, add an action build. For a while, I just want to talk about transitions. So transitions is how you go from one slide to another. So I'm going to tap on my slide, and I can say Add a transition. And when I tap that button on the bottom, now I get all of my transition options. Some of them are good, and some of them are bad. I'll show you some of the good ones. Oh, no, I'll show you some of the bad ones first, which are the ones that I don't like. Generally, they were ordered in when we made them. So the older ones are first, and then as we kept on adding more, we added them to the end. Iris? Iris is okay. Iris looks like Star Wars. It's not the worst. It's not bad. So you can just add a transition by tapping here. As you tap around, we preview what it looks like, and when you're happy with it, you just tap outside. And now I've got my switch transition on my slide. And I can play it, and it looks like a switch transition. But now, it's a switch, and now if I tap on switch, I can get more options. I can change the timing, I can change the direction. So let's say, instead of from left, I can go from right. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, okay, it just changed the other side. And if I want to apply transitions to a bunch of slides, I can select multiple slides by pressing down, tapping, and now I can select 4 slides. and change from multiple. There's a little change button up top. And then let's say I want all of them to do blinds instead. And I want all of them to be a little bit slower. So that's an easy way so you don't have to tap a million times to add a transition. Or if you want to save even more time, if you tap on a slide, there's a select all. So you can select all your slides and then add a quick fade in. So that saves some time. That's great. So one other thing to mention about the transition options is if I go in the options, actually I want to change it from blinds to something else. Fall, maybe fall's cool. Fall's cool. No, all right, anyways. One other option inside transition is start. And this lets you say if you want the slide to advance if you tap or automatically. This option actually has nothing to do with transitions because even if you didn't have any transitions, you could still say you want your slide to go from one to the next without clicking. So if you want to do that, you set that to automatically. And let's say I'll set it to 3 seconds. And now when I press play, it will sit here for 3 seconds and then it will go. Will it? Cool, it will go. So that might not be a very obvious way of finding that. So I said that transition is how you get from one slide to the other. Most of the time, transition, it treats the slide as an image. There are some special transitions though. They're at the back. So if I go and change my transition, if I keep on scrolling, there's some special ones. The yellow ones are called object-aware transitions. They're a little fancier. They will move the objects on the slide. So let me show you. If I say object pop, what's it do? Wait. Is it broken? I made it broken. That's awkward. Let's try something else. That's so weird. This is very embarrassing. Let me quick keynote. This normally does not happen. Please preview for me. Hey, can you quick? Are these broken? Let me keep on going. Object-aware transitions weren't even that good. The other type of special transitions are called text transitions. They're at the very bottom, shimmer, sparkle, swing, and if I tap, hold on 1 second. Why is it not working? This is embarrassing. Okay, cool. It was a bum slide. So I'm going to go back to everything I said. Object-aware transitions. The objects themselves will move on the slide. Or which one I like? Object. So it's a little bit smarter. It's not just the slide as an image, it breaks them apart. And then if I use the text transitions, they only appear for slides that have text on them. If I tap them, it animates the text. So I like the N ones the most. They're the fanciest. Maybe it's about time I say which are my favorite now. Go. Okay, so those are slide transitions. They're pretty easy. I want to talk about builds because that's where things get more interesting. Build is the animations that you put on a specific object. So in this case, I've got 3 animals on my slide. I want to animate them coming in. So just like before, I can tap on an object. Now my bottom bar changes. It has build in, and build out, and animation build. Build in is how the object animates into the slide. Action build is how the object moves around the slide. And build out is how the object leaves the slide. So let's say for kangaroo, I want a compress. Okay, kangaroo will come in. I know. All right, I'll do flight. Cool. That's not very realistic. Turkey, I want it to, no, this is an ostrich. I don't know why I wrote turkey. I know that ostriches cannot fly, so it will anvil in, and the unicorn needs something really special. Something really special. I really like sparkle, but I think I overuse sparkle. Confetti in? Okay. No confetti in. So, excuse me? Okay. I will just do sparkle. I love sparkle. So I can put builds on these things. Similarly, I can add builds out. I'm just going to multi-select them and have them build out the same way. I guess I'll have them flame out. My second favorite. So you can see that I'm adding animations to bring them in and to bring them out, but I can also change the order of them. So to do that, I want to go into the build order list on the upper right, and then this shows the order in which my animations come in. It also shows how they come in. Right now, if I select each one, it says, it happens one after the other on tap. I can change it to, so every time I tap, the animation happens. I can change it to all come in at the same time. I'll choose width, I'll choose width, and now when I press play, they should all just happen simultaneously. Cool. One sort of tip is, I could do with, or I could do after, and if I do after, one, then the other, then the next one. So these are cool. Sometimes people want something in the middle. So here's a little secret. I'm going to just make them all the same animation so it's clearer. I'm going to make them all anvil, put it like anvil. So this is what it looks like with. It feels a little too staggered. So what I could do is I could change them to say with, but then on the bottom, underneath, there's a delay. So I can just add a little bit of delay so I have it like duh, duh, duh. So I'll add 0.2 seconds, 0.4 seconds, and now if I play it, hopefully it feels a little more natural. Cool. I do this all the time. I don't even know why there's not an easier way to do it, but it adds a little bit more of just fluidity to your animations. So, do I have more to talk about for builder list? So here's an example where I have all of my animals coming in and all of my animals coming out in my builder list. Let's see what they look like. I tap, they come in, tap, they go out. That's pretty cool, but I could use the builder list to say, I want the kangaroo to come in and out first, then the ostrich, then the unicorn. So I could do that by saying, I'll take this kangaroo, slide it up. I'll take this ostrich, slide it up. And then I'll say on tap. This kangaroo will come in, then immediately after come out. So let's see if I've done that right. Go away, ostrich comes in, oh, tap. It goes away. And then the unicorn comes in, and then goes away. Cool. So that's how you can rearrange the order of the builds on your slide. There are some special animations. Those builds work for anything you put on them, but some builds are special and only show up sometimes. Also, some builds have options that only show up for some objects. Here are built-ins, here are actual built-in effects that only work for text. So if you select a text box, you'll see more builds on the bottom, and they're specific for text because they change the letters around. They don't show up for images, for built-ins and for build-outs. That was cool. There's also text delivery options. You can choose how, for some builds, how you want the text to come in. It could come all at once, maybe word by word, or letter by letter. And how you do that is, if you select something, if you select an object and you go into the build options, sometimes they have a text animation option, and that's where you choose if you want things to happen by word or by character. So if you want to jazz things up a little bit, then you could do those options. They're really fun. Okay. And, line draw is a type of build that only works on certain objects as well. Mostly lines, it looks like this. If you have a line on your slide, it will animate the line coming in. So if you used lines before, you know that you can add endpoints, and then we're smart about animating the endpoint. I think it looks pretty cool. Line draw also works on shapes that have outlines, where the outline comes in and the shape fades in. And line draw also works for drawings. It's a very bad chicken I've drawn, but then you can see that it will draw, it will animate in my entire drawing. So line draw, I think is super cool. Another special build, it's called Trace. It works for objects, it sort of like traces it in. It also works for text. And I'm guessing a lot of you guys are teachers, and you often have slides that have lots of lists. So there's different ways to show a list. They're called delivery options. You probably know a paragraph of text coming all at once, but you could set it so that you can just click for each line. It's called by bullet. That's easy if you just want to step through and not show your entire list at once. Or by bullet group, where it's just a bullet group is the indented part of the list. And a fancy one is by highlighted bullet. Same thing as bullet, except it fades out the last one, so it really emphasizes your current point. Some people try to set this up with like 20 different slides where they're just going, adding one line on each slide. This is a much easier way to do it. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm gonna actually create a slide for this. I will copy this, paste it on my slide. By default, animates all at once. I could go into transition to builds. I see that it has a sparkle built in. If I tap it, I have a delivery option. And then I could choose if I want it by bullet or by build group. Oh, let me show you one thing. Right now, it happens all at once. If I go into the build order, I see one item. If I change it to say by bullet, now I see 9 different items. And now I could say, I tap, one that comes in, and talk about it for a while. Tap, tap, tap. So it'll save you a lot of time. These aren't just for text. They also happen for other types of things, like tables. I could animate one column at a time. And again, I do that the same way. I select my table, inside of my options, there's delivery, and there's all these different ways to bring in a table. By column, by row, that might be neat. We saw earlier that this even works with charts. You could choose different ways to animate your charts. You could do just the blue lines first, then the yellow lines, or by chunks. And here's something pretty fancy. I'm going to delete this and show you from the beginning. Everybody knows that Keynote has charts and tables, but not a lot of people know that we also have 3D charts. So you go to charts, and normally it's on 2D. You can tap the 3D button, and then you have 3D charts, and you tap it. And then you've got this button in the middle to spin it around. That's a little silly. But if you animate a 3D chart, that also has special animations that show up right here. You know because they're called 3D. So 3D crane, very dramatic. 3D rotating row. Ooh, that's cool too. So 3D charts, I feel like we're going out of style. Maybe we could have them make a comeback. Okay, so that's building things in and out. Now, a couple months ago, In the new version of Keynote, we released action builds. That didn't exist on iOS before, now it does. And that lets you animate objects on the slide. There are two types of action builds. The basic action builds do things like this. You have an object on a slide, it will change it. The other type of action build is called an emphasis action build. And they animate the thing, but then it ends up being exactly how it started. Like tap, they will do a thing, but then they'll come back to normal. This is great if you have a slide and you just want to call attention to the thing, like you just have a blink. And there are different reasons to use both. I would say, I'm gonna go back. The basic action build, when you guys saw the book I made earlier, most of those animations were action builds, moving things around, changing their colors. So these are really the building blocks of a lot of creative things you can do. Okay, now it's sort of complicated. Let me show you how to make an action build. Here's a slide, it's got a circle. We know I could have put a build in or build out, but this time I get to have an action build in the middle. And now I have on the left, these are my normal action builds that change the property of an object. On the right are the emphasis action builds. Action builds are different than build in and out because build in and out, only one of them can be on the slide. You can only have one build in. So with action builds, you can have an infinite amount of stuff. I can say, I want to scale this, and then I want to blink it, and then I want to bounce it that way. I'm going to scale it, I apply it as a scale action build. Now for action builds, there's a plus next to it. Then I'll add a blink, and then I'll add bounce, and I can keep on going forever, but I will not. And then I can rearrange the different builds in the builder list and see what that looks like. It gets bigger, and it bounces, and then it blinks. So that's how you, if I tap it again, I can see that I still don't have a build-in, I did not add a build-out, and for action it says multiple. And when I tap on it, I can see the 3 action builds I have on an object. That's pretty cool. What's the next one? Oh, motion path. I love motion path. Motion path is generally for the iOS apps, I would say the Mac apps are more powerful than the iOS apps because they've been around for a lot longer. Recently, we've been trying to change that, and we've been trying to say that make sure that our iOS apps are as powerful as Mac apps, because we now know that a lot of people, they only have iPads, they don't have computers. We introduced this feature a couple months ago, and this, I think, is the first time where I can say that this feature is better on iOS than on Mac. You can't do drawing a motion path on Mac very well. Let me show you exactly what it is. I want this car to, okay. In this scenario, I want this car to drive around all the different cities of this US map. These are cities that have the best barbecue in the country. So I'm gonna take a barbecue road trip. So I want to choose this car, and I'm gonna add an action build. This one's called Create Path. And when I choose Create Path, I can just draw how I want to move. So I'm gonna move my car around, and then it will drive over. There's 2 different options. Clear that. The first circle down here, oh no, let's just ignore that. I'm going to delete this and create a new create path. The first circle is squiggly line. This is great for drawing squiggly lines. But sometimes I want to move things in a straight line, so that one's not great. So I will change this and, oh, sorry, wrong one. Next build, create path. The second button is straight line. So if I choose straight line, it's much easier to draw things straight. It doesn't wobble around as I draw. So depending on what you want to animate, use one of the two buttons. So when I'm done, I can press done, and then I can choose how long I want this to go. Okay. I would say most of your colleagues probably know everything I've showed you up till now, but now I'll show you something that I don't think a lot of people know, which is after you've drawn a line, you can tap it, and then you see the point. And once you have the point, you can change the line that you've drawn. Let's see that my line was not exactly in the cities, so I can move them around to make them perfect. Or I can even say, I think this is Wisconsin. I don't actually want to go to Wisconsin, so I can tap on the point and I have different options. I can make it a smooth point, which means it turns curvy. Oops. Oh, wait, this is Or let's say that if I play this is my slide, my barbecue road trip. I actually don't stop at any of the cities, but I want to stop at some of them. So I can go and select my line. Let me put this on the table so I can tap a little better. I can select my line. And then let's say in Austin, I can tap on this point and say, split my path. If I split my path, it will make 2 action builds, so it'll cut in half. And then I'll do that again for St. Louis, split my path. Now, if I press play, my car drives a bit, stops, I can tap, drives a bit more, stops, I tap, drives a bit more. I don't know, it's super slow. And I can see that it made 3 different builds for me. So that's a nice way to customize the lines that you've drawn afterwards. Okay, so I showed you transitions and I showed you builds, and now I want to show you Magic Move. Magic Move is a special type of transition. It's sort of like a transition and a build. Here's the concept. I start with one slide, and I add a transition. This is a special one called Magic Move. It's in the middle. And then when I go out, it will ask me, do I want to make a copy of the slide? And I will say yes. And how Magic Moves works is that it looks at the beginning and it looks at the end, and it moves all the objects from one place to the other. So this is where I start. I'm going to move my shapes here. And then if I play it, it will just slide them around. I would say for 3 years, I only use Magic Move to animate anything in Keynote. It's that powerful. Not everything, most things. It's not just position. It could be rotation, it could be size, and let's say it could be, I don't know what's happening. I can change the color around. So, what's the color? Sure, we'll say green. So now if I do a Magic Move, you can see that it morphs multiple properties around. So that's pretty powerful. Okay, I feel like I finished all of the core points that I want to talk about in animation. I think if you know that, you basically know every single thing in the feature. So now I want to show you some pro tips. Let's say I have an example like this. And I've got a map, I've drawn points, and I want the pins to blink. And so I do that. I'll actually do that. I will select this, I'll select the point. I said pulse, it's perfect. But when I look at it, it doesn't look right because it's pulsing from the middle. I didn't want that. I wanted it to pulse from the bottom because the pins sit on the ground. In Keynote, you can't change the point in which things animate from. They will always animate from the center. The center is the point between the 8 dots. But I have a hack where we could just, you can't change the center, but let me show you how to copy it. I will copy this thing, paste it, make it upside down, right there. Now I'm going to make this invisible and group them. So I can select it and change out the opacity so the user can't see it at all. I can select this and group them together. And now when I try to animate it, cool. It changed the middle. So let's see, I would say that when I look on Twitter and I see people trying to do this, it's because they want to do something like this. Let's say it's a science project and they've got the sun, and it's yellow, and then this is the earth. I can make the earth square just for the point of illustration. So I want the earth to go around the sun, so I will say transitions and builds and add a rotation build. And that is obviously not what I want. I do not want the earth to rotate on itself. I want the earth to rotate around the sun. So I can use the same hack by saying, copy this, paste it, put it on the other side of the sun, make this invisible, and now make them a big group. And now when I do that, rotate, let's see if I did it right. I did it right enough. Hold on. Let me turn rotation to say 3 times over 4 seconds. Let's see what it's like. Good. So that is the effect I want. Sort of a hack. I think it's pretty clever. Here's another pro tip. I call it fake mask. So you can't animate things. You can't mask something and animate it in the mask. But I could still make something like this where I have a globe, and I want it's basically a magic move. So it's a pretty cool effect. Let's try to recreate this. I will, yeah. Cool. Got this. I just want 2 copies. Copy. Paste. And then I can do a magic move where, add a magic move. It will ask me to duplicate. Say yes. Now, just select these things and move it. Let's see what that looks like. They slide around. That's pretty cool, but I want it in a globe. So I can make a circle. And make the circle white. Put it on both slides of for the magic move, and now if I look at what it is, it does the exact opposite of what I want. So that's no good. What I want is the magic move in the circle. So how you can do it is you can just create a big square. It's the entire slide. And then when you have that, you can go into the Range Inspector and then select the 2. And then use the combine shapes on bottom and knock out the circle from the square. This one is the one that takes what's on top and takes away from what's on bottom. So I will knock that out. I will make this white so it looks like slide background. I'm gonna copy this and paste this and delete this on the next slide. And now what I'm left with is something that looks pretty good. Thank you. The last thing I want to show you is how to animate a drawing. So this is the thing that's going to probably be the most relevant for the exercise that you guys are going to do next, which is drawing your own character and animating it. So let me start making a drawing. I can tap. Okay. So drawing has 2 different types of features. I can have lines. Draw I'll draw chicken. I forgot what chicken looks like. Okay, I've got chicken, and then I can fill it with the paintbrush. Tap to fill, I can add eyeballs. I could use the crayon again to, I don't know, add details. So if I have a drawing, not a good drawing, and I animate it, I could animate it using line draw, which I showed you guys before. Built in, line draw. So it will animate what I've drawn. That's great. But let's say I want to draw something more complicated. I want to draw an entire scene and a character. I'm going to delete this and try again. So for my scene, I'm going to draw grass. And then we've got grass. Sky. So for my scene, I want to have a character walk by, and for this example, my character will be called Fireboy. It's a little boy made of fire. That looks like fire. He has eyeballs and hands and feet. So the animation I want to do is that as Fireboy walks around to different things, he's like Midas, except instead of turning things into gold, he turns them into fire. So everything he touches will burn away. So that's what I want. So I want other things. I'll make a tree. So in this case, my drawing ordering got wrong. I liked the trunk of the tree, but the leaves are on top. I can change that by using the selection tool to either tap to select something or draw a circle around something to select it. And then once I select it, I can change the color of it, and the two buttons next to it change the order. So I can tap here, cool. And then I also want, I guess, a bunny rabbit on here. If I don't want to draw it, I'm going to save some time, just add a bunny rabbit. Here we go. Great. So now I want to animate Fireboy walking along and accidentally burning things. But if I try to animate this drawing and use Create Path, I'm animating the whole thing. It's not what I want. I need this drawing in different parts. So I can do that by going back and drawing. And I will use the same lasso tool that I used before. I can select parts of my drawing. Fireboy. Oh. And then once I select what I want, I can move it around. That's great. The last option says separate. And when I press separate, it breaks it out as a separate drawing. I can do the same thing for the tree, because I want to animate the tree as well. Tree, separate. Great, so now I've got all these different pieces, and they're separate. So now I can start animating my scene. So I can do this using stuff I already showed you. You use Create Path. Fireboy walks along. That looks great. And then as he walks along, these things will burn up in flame. Bunny also burns up in flame. Excellent. Let's see what that looks like. Fireboy walks along, and then burn, and then burn. A couple things wrong with this. First thing is that Fireboy is underneath the tree. That's not realistic. I can change that by selecting Fireboy and going into Format Inspector, arranging him so he's at the top. So now he's at the top of the tree, it's great. The other problem is that Fireboy finished walking across the slide and then things burned up, and that's not accurate. Things should burn up as soon as he walks by. So I can use my path editing skills that I show you. I'm tapping here, and let's tap on a point and say, I'm gonna split the path here. Let's tap on this point and say, I'm gonna split the path here. So now I've got three different, these are three different builds. And I'm gonna go to my builder list and say, number one, Fireboy walks to the tree. So after that, I want the tree to burn up afterwards. Number two, Fireboy walks to the bunny. So I want the bunny to burn up afterwards. And then Fireboy runs away in shame. So let's see what that looks like. Fireboy walks to the tree. Oh no, it burned. What are we gonna do? Run to the bunny. That burned too. Oh my god. And then he runs away in disgrace. So that works pretty good with just a couple clicks. One other secret I have is I like how the bunny burns away, but I sort of wish that it can just change the bunny, but I still like the flames. And I could hack that by, I'm gonna make another copy of the bunny. I'm going to just add another bunny. This one I'm gonna make black, because he didn't burn to a crisp. And then drag this right on top of the first bunny, but then change the order so it's behind him. So I have two bunnies on top of each other, but you can't see them. And it's not until I play it, the tree burns away, but the bunny just burns to a crisp. So lots of different hacks you can do. I think that's all I've got to show you. I feel like I've given you everything you need to animate your own characters. Did I go too fast? Are there any questions? Anybody? No. All right, then with the time remaining, please try to do this on your own and create a little scene that you animate. And then if you do something really good, at the end we could airplay it and show everyone else our skills. Cool. I'll walk around and see how everyone's doing.